Previously in Fairy Tale The 100 Years Quest, Lucy had a dramatic showdown with Kyrie and managed to pull out a win thanks to her very own abilities and a little help from Laxus. But it was the win I'd been long since waiting for. But that doesn't spell the end of the Diablos Guild. And the problem is, Ignia is here as well as Celine entering into the fray. What's going to happen next? Let's find out. Alright, Fairy Tale 100 Years Quest, Chapter 104. Blue Dimension. Got Urza with that katana action going on. Slicing up leaves. Reads, cleaved in two with one stroke. She will smite the wicked. Well, considering what happened to her hair, there's a lot of wicked to be smoked. Yep, Lucy is officially burnt out. Kyrie has been defeated and is, once again, buck-ass naked. Laxus got a smile on his face, but then it's like he reacts to what's been going on and says, what happened? My memory's all hazy. Ugh. Oh, interestingly enough, Virgo's still there, despite the fact that Lucy's unconscious. Virgo says, do not try to move. You have a deep wound. Laxus finally realizes what's going on and says, Lucy, and that Diablos lady, what the hell happened? Virgo, prostrating herself with her butt towards Laxus. God, Virgo. Says, allow me to explain. You, Laxus-sama, were spanking my hindquarters. Go on, feel free to continue. Oh my god. I love Virgo and I hate her all at the same time. Laxus says, yeah, I don't think that happened. That enemy must have had crazy skill. You got real strong, Lucy. Yeah, props for my girl. Oh yeah. Meanwhile, with the alliance of Natsu and Suzaku hunting down Ignia, Natsu shouts, damn it! Where the hell do you go, Ignia? Suzaku says, how odd. You are a dragon slayer, yet you know not of his smells. Natsu shouts, you don't either. Ignia responds, this was our first meeting. I cannot trace his scent. And Natsu replies, that's no good. I can't smell him at all. He smells a lot like my dad, but... Suzaku replies, shocked, Dad? Natsu says, Igneo, the fire dragon. Been a while since I talked about him. Yeah, it has been a while since he's talked about Igneo. Natsu then says, and Ignia is Igneo's real son or something. Suzaku says, I see. Really, Suzaku? You managed to glean the whole story from that. It's Happy. Happy comes rushing towards Natsu. Suzaku just says, Cat? Happy rushes into Natsu's arms and says, oh, I finally found you. Natsu says, weren't you with Lucy? This is bad. I was sure she'd be safe with Happy. Happy says, this is Lucy we're talking about, so I'm sure she's fine. Suzaku, hearing all this, says, oh dear, he places far too much faith in that cat. Back to the main event. Urza staring daggers at Masaki, who has a wicked grin on herself. And Gajeel and Gray are just in the background like, oh god. Gajeel says, I was worried about that heat, but Gray says, I'm more worried about Urza's thirst for blood. Urza calmly says, stay out of this, all of you. Much to Gray and Gajeel's shock. Oop. Requit. Urza says, I will be enough. Musaki responds to that, saying, oh my, underestimating me, are we? Of course it doesn't matter if you all come at me at once. Phrasing. Gray says, who's underestimating who? Carla, who I keep forgetting is here, says, but her magic is incredible. Gray responds and says, yeah, I got that. It almost feels like Laxus and Gildarts are about to square off. Masaki says, if you truly want to fight one-on-one, so be it. You have 5 seconds to finish me off. As she teleports Urza away, much to the shock of Gajeel and Gray. Gajeel shouts for Urza. Gray says, she's gone. And Urza appears, it looks to be underwater. She says, well, this is, and Masaki calls it, Blue Dimension. The Blue Dimension, huh? So is this like a watery place or what? Masaki's abilities didn't scream water to me. Masaki tells Urza, a world with just you and I. Urza, almost prone within this dimension, says, my body is floating. My legs have no strength. And Misaki, rearing back for an attack, says, in this world, I am absolute. Blue stream and a concussive current glows blasting at Urza. Urza is blasted back, and the next thing you know, she's right back at where she started with Gajeel, Carla, and Gray. Gray is shocked. Carla says, "What just happened? I thought they both disappeared." Gajeel says Urza looks banged up. Urza, down but not out, slowly gets back up, and Misaki appears and says, "That's 5 seconds." And then suddenly something affects Urza. Oh, geez. And then Urza writhes and screams in pain. Misaki says, 5 seconds in the blue dimension is approximately 5 hours here. So, was Urza hit with like 5 hours worth of constant attacks? I should just shut up and let Misaki explain. Misaki says, ergo, a mere 5 seconds worth of damage becomes 5 hours of torture and all the damage with it. That is so broken. But Urza has been through torture. With Kyoka, so that's nothing new for her. I mean, that doesn't mean it's something you would want to experience again, but Urza has dealt with torture. Oof. But Urza is not looking like she's in good shape. Gajeel and Gray go rushing over to her. Gray says, "Urza, hang in there." Gajeel shouts, "What the hell just happened?" Carla, understanding the situation, says, "So any damage sustained in the other world will be multiplied upon return?" Misaki responds, "Well, you could put it that way. Now then, that assertive lady of yours can no longer fight. It's your turn now." Gray and Gajeel assess the situation with Gray saying, "So once we get taken into her space, it's over for us." Gajeel says, "How do we defend against something like that?" Gray says, "Looks like I'll have to start." But someone shouts, "Wait!" And much to the shock of everyone else, Urza rises and says, "I told you, I will be enough." Wouldn't be fairy tale if Urza wasn't just utterly tanking the worst of the worst. Carla is shocked. Gajeel says, "But with those wounds." Gray says, "That's crazy talk." Misaki is curious, though, and says, "I hadn't expected you to recover from that. You're an interesting one indeed." Next will be 24 seconds. Pain equivalent to 1 full day's worth of torture. Urza responds, "1 day? That's lenient. I've known torture that have lasted far longer." This is true. Misaki, as she teleports the two of them away, says, "That mouth of yours, I'll have to shut it for good." And thus they are once again in the blue dimension. I don't know how I feel about this ability, honestly. Misaki tells Urza, "This place, my world, is one where I and only I may come in contact with my enemy." And as she raises her finger to the sky, she says, "It's already over for you." But Urza has a look of determination upon her face. And as Misaki's attack goes raging forth, the blue stream, Urza shifts out of the way. Much to Misaki's surprise, she states, she dodged it? She couldn't have. Using the same magic Urza shouts as she rushes towards Misaki. "Using the same magic twice was your mistake. This space may hinder my movements, but my armor can still move fine." I mean, yeah, oddly enough, despite the fact that she's in another dimension, she can still re-equip. And much to Misaki's surprise, she shouts, "Could it be? She's magically influencing her armor?" And Urza shouts, "To move myself." Yeah, apparently Urza is using her magical ability because in the blue dimension, her body just can't move. It's like she's stunned and left prone. But thanks to Urza's re-equip ability and the magical nature of her armor, she's able to inject her own magic into her armor, causing her to move. So movement doesn't become much of an issue for her. Although we've seen situations where Urza's whole body has been destroyed and she's still gotten up and moved. Remember the meteor feat? So it's hard to kind of imagine something that Urza couldn't do. The heavenly wheel armor, yes. And so Urza uses her mighty attack, Heaven's Wheel, Bowman Block, to strike at Misaki. But that hasn't taken Misaki down, which is important. As Misaki, with anger and seething rage in her eyes, looks at Urza and shouts, "Do you expect to defy my world?" Misaki was looking for an easy win, but Urza doesn't do easy. I mean, I'll be honest, this is Urza. She's gonna win this. I'm just shocked that she's gonna solo this whole entire situation. Honestly, in an RPG, Urza would have a special ability where once her HP hits its lowest amount, she'll still automatically have that 1 HP left kind of situation. Like in some RPGs, you'll have like items or special abilities that'll make it so that it's just like you will not be instantly KO'd, you'll go all the way down to just 1 HP. And Urza must have like a special skill where it's just like 1 HP means that she's instantly boosted to the maximum she can go. It's like, as long as she isn't hit again, she'll be fine. And her attack does like 10 times the normal damage. Not to mention, the woman cut Urza's hair. That affront cannot last. Nobody cuts Urza's hair. And honestly, out of all the ridiculous feats that we've seen Urza do previously, this is one of the few ones that make a lot of sense to me. Because it's just like, oh, her magical armor, she has the ability to move it using her magical power? Yeah, why not? She's literally able to summon the armor using magic. Why not be able to control it using magic as well? The one thing that I'm not certain about is, what is the blue dimension? It's so weird and such an oddly hacks ability. Kind of makes me think of like a beefed up version of Minerva. But I'm glad that Misaki was able to take Urza's attack, because it's just, if it was just this dimension alone that allowed Misaki to take down most of her opponents, she'd feel weak as shit. It's just like, oh, okay, that's how you do it. You just take people to this other dimension and dish out an attack that would kill most people. But tanking an attack from Urza, good stuff. And Urza's history of torture has saved her yet again. Sad as it may be, it's just to put a positive spin on being tortured for most of your life. What I'm hoping for, though, is like a really solid one-on-one fight between Urza and Misaki. Because honestly, so far, the higher members of the Yabos Guild, they've been pretty decent fighters. Honestly, at this point, the only person who hasn't really felt like intimidating, oddly enough, is the Scullion Raider. Even Mad Mole felt like, okay, yeah, this guy's a pretty tough customer to deal with. Scullion Raider is just kind of like, okay, whatever. Just because I haven't really seen him do that much. At least with Mad Moral, it's just like, okay, he's all in his defense. You know, Kyrie has had a lot more fights than Scullion too. And at least with Haku, Kirin, they've had some pretty decent attacks and fights and stuff like that. Like, Haku probably had one of the more interesting fights against Wendy. Wendy actually usually has some pretty decent fights too. But I want Misaki to like really give Urza the business. It's not like we've never seen an opponent who's given Urza a tough fight before, though. But I would love for Misaki to be added on to that list of like really tough opponents. So my guess is like all of the next chapter, might as well just title it Urza versus Misaki, and it'll just be a knockdown, drag out fight right up into the end. Yeah, do that and I will be pretty happy. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Would you prefer this to be an easy victory for Urza? Or are you really looking forward to seeing what else Misaki can do? Because, I don't know, just the blue dimension thing is just not vibing with me. Did you have that same problem? Let me know. But until next time, feel free to subscribe, that way you don't miss out on the next video. Or don't, I ain't your daddy, but I still love you like one. Until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, bye-bye!